Now, I can speak from personal experience that back in 2005, when the curtain came down on The Revenge of the Sith, Episode 3 of the Star Wars Skywalker saga, I never thought we would see another movie from the galaxy far, far away. Then George Lucas sold Lucasfilm to Disney for $4 billion, and a new trilogy completing the saga followed. Now, to say Episodes 7, 8 and 9 have divided fans is an understatement, but if all else, the movies had their moments, and we are here to count down our favourite ones. First, here's Neil with some sequel trilogy facts.
Thank you very much, Pavan. Welcome to a galaxy far, far away, where I've got some facts for you about the Star Wars sequels. Originally, Rey's parents were planned to be revealed in The Force Awakens, but J.J. Abrams left it vague. The reveal was later handled by Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi.
You're nothing.
Daisy Ridley, who played Rey, didn't initially know her character's full backstory or family connections until much later in the production process.
I need someone to show me my place.
Carrie Fisher, who portrayed Princess Leia, passed away in 2016 before filming The Rise of Skywalker. The film used unused footage from The Force Awakens to incorporate her character's storyline.
No one's ever really gone.
Oscar Isaac, who played Poe Dameron, had to get creative with his character's backstory. Poe was originally written as more of a side character, but Isaac helped make Poe more dynamic and complex.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first?
The Last Jedi introduced porgs, adorable creatures that lived on Luke Skywalker's island. They were created partly because of the need to digitally remove real puffins that were beyond the island's location. The Last Jedi introduced the concept of force projection, where Luke Skywalker projected an image of himself across the galaxy, an ability that was never seen in previous Star Wars films.
See you around, kid.
In early drafts of The Rise of Skywalker, had a much different script known as Duel of the Fates. This version, written by Colin Trevorrow, was darker and featured a very different conclusion for the trilogy.
This is not going to go the way you think.
The beloved droid BB-8 was designed with practical effects, including a real-life rolling version of the droid that could move on set for many of its scenes. Cameos in the sequel trilogy included Simon Pegg, Daniel Craig, Kevin Smith, Prince William, Prince Harry, Tom Hardy, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Lin-Manuel Miranda, to name just a few.
Tighten those restraints, scavenger scum.
The trilogy itself grossed over $4.4 billion at the box office worldwide, with each film now surpassing $1 billion worldwide. Enjoy your time, guys. See you soon.
Thank you very much, Neil. Oh, that finished abruptly. It wasn't supposed to happen. Yes, here we are. To finish off the Skywalker saga, we're going to do our top 10 Star Wars sequel trilogy moments, and I'm very happy to say that we've got, from the Force Ghost Conversation podcast, Anthony King. Hello, Anthony.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Really excited to dive into some of these moments here. I think the sequel trilogy is awesome personally, and there's a lot of great things and themes from Star Wars overall that I think apply. So if you're a fan of the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, there's something for you in the sequel trilogy, I think, for sure.
I do agree with you, mainly, which we will get to that. We had a little bit of an interesting sort of pre-recording conversation where I was saying that we're from different eras. I'm much older than you. I was listening to your podcast, and I think you said you were you 10 when the Phantom Menace came out? Is that right?
So I was 4.
Oh, you were
Phantom Menace.
Oh my God, that makes it even worse.
I was 10 for Revenge of the Sith. So yeah,
for Revenge of the Sith, right? Yep. Okay. So I was 8 when the original Star Wars came out in 19.
All right.
So it would have been 78 when it came over to the UK.
Sure.
So I am an OG, original trilogy for me all the way. Mm-hmm. But so going from you, I mean, you're obviously a prequel trilogy. That's your era.
That's correct to say. Yes.
If you like. So how was that your first entry into Star Wars then, or did you watch the original trilogy first?
So it's hard to say because my memories are really vague of that era. So I have been told that I went to see the re-release of the special editions in the cinema. I was 2 at the time, so don't remember that at all. I vaguely remember seeing the Phantom Menace in the movie theater, but just mostly some glimpses of like some dark side users, mostly Maul, that just like were nightmare fuel for me as a kid back then.
I can imagine.
I will say Attack of the Clones is really where I start to like piece together, okay, they're Star Wars. This is what this is. I really like these characters, Anakin Skywalker. I love the end battle sequence with all the Jedi in the arena. I watched that movie about 300 times the summer of 2003. That's not an exaggeration either. That's even under lowball number for how many times I watched that movie that summer for a variety of reasons. So it's really around that era where it starts to like come into mind of, okay, this is a film. There's thematical elements of it. And then it's really around 2004, I would say, where like with the release of the DVD special edition, that I start to piece together, okay, this is one giant saga. This isn't just like new movies that are coming out that are rebooting the old movies. No, this is one through line of a single story that then Revenge of the Sith comes in the middle there and tells the full saga that we knew of at that time.
Mm. So you obviously knew that Anakin became Darth Vader before, like when with me it was Empire Strikes Back and no, I am your father. So that was a real sort of kick in the teeth and like, oh my God, what a... Whereas that it doesn't land the same for you, Empire Strikes Back, because you kind of already know that that's what's going to happen. It's just finding out how that happens.
So it's interesting to phrase it that way because it did hit me in a different way. And this is because before the DVD special edition re-release, or even frankly during that, I felt like Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace were different Star Wars. I didn't think they were connected at all. So it took my uncle, who was my Star Wars sensei, to sit me down and basically like hold my hand as he told me the story, where he was basically saying like, all right, you know that guy that you really like in Attack of the Clones, that young boy that you like in the Phantom Menace? Well, he becomes that guy that's in that big black suit that you see later on that terrifies you. And I'm like, no, that's not possible. So I had to do this whole like processing and soul searching thing in order to realize like, oh my gosh, this is right. How is this true? How is this even possible? So I basically had my own Luke moment in a way where I was saying, no, that's not true.
That's absolutely right, yeah.
And so then rewatching those films with that lens again, then I'm like, okay, wow, this makes sense. And then once some of the images of Revenge of the Sith started to percolate out, and then I would see that the Hayden Christensen makeup and hairstyle was exactly the image that you would see at the end of Return of the Jedi, that really helped to get like, okay, 1 through 6, this is a thing. So once the narrative started to make sense, then that was like a really revelatory moment for me personally.
I think because with me, I've always said it up until Episode 9 came out, that Star Wars is in my DNA. It's always been more than a movie and more than a group of movies to me. As anybody that watches and listens to our podcast knows, it's all around me. It always is. I've got tattoos, the whole thing.
Literally, I can see it all around
literally
you.
All around. It's on my skin. It's literally in my blood. And I can remember going to see The Phantom Menace because, again, I thought Return of the Jedi was the end. And even though George Lucas had, once
the
Star Wars
Ewok movies and the Droids TV show.
Well, I mean, yeah, there was, and of course the holiday special. We had
That's
that.
Right.
We got to get a bootleg to watch it, but God bless YouTube for things like that. But it was weird because obviously again, you wouldn't have remembered this because you weren't around, but when Star Wars first came out, it was just Star Wars. It wasn't Episode 4 and New Hope. And then when that changed and it was Episode 4, and that obviously then confused everybody because hang on a minute, it's Episode 4. And then George Lucas said, well, yeah, it's the middle part of a 9-part trilogy, 9-part saga. And obviously in the end that never happened because when he did the prequel trilogy, he said, that's it, we're done. Right. I think there's a famous news interview where someone said to him, will there ever be an Episode 7? No, that's it. It'll never happen. So when The Force Awakens rolled around, it was like, with this, again, the same as it felt with The Phantom Menace, it felt like, oh my God, we're getting new Star Wars. How did you feel when The Force Awakens, when the whole Disney of it all sort of happened?
Well, it's really funny because I went to Disney World with so I was in marching band in high school, and for Christmas of 2012, we went to um, or around Christmas, I will say, we went to Walt Disney World with our marching band to celebrate, and we were in line at Star Tours with a bunch of my friends, and we were literally talking about what 7, 8, and 9 could be. And I'm not, I think the sale might have happened by that point. I'm not quite sure exactly on the date or when it was officially announced, but I don't think that the films of 7, 8, and 9 were fully said that it's happening yet. I
Yeah,
think that might
yeah.
have been a few months later. I think I definitely remember that. So my friends, as they by that point anointed me as the Star Wars guru, the historian of Star Wars, if you will. They asked me, "Do you think a 7, 8? Do you think there's more films coming down the line?" And I was like, honestly, I don't think so. Between no, I didn't know that they would basically purge the extended universe at that time. I was like, with all the stories that had come out via that, and they're doing a lot of work with Clone Wars at this moment. They're finding ways to tell stories ancillarly, but I don't know if they'll actually do like an episode 7 because I felt like Return of the Jedi was a very clear, happy ending for everybody, and in order to have the story continue in some way, shape, or form in films at least, that they would need to have a great story first and foremost to it would undermine in some way perhaps, or at least has a chance to undermine that climactic ending of Vader's redemption, but also defeating the Empire and all that stuff. And so that was my original take then was that, and then lo and behold, a couple weeks later, 7, 8, 9 are announced. I'm like, okay, well, this is interesting. But also, I think initially my fear was as a kid who loved the prequels, there was a lot of celebration at that time, especially since it was announced that George wasn't going to be participating or involved with that trilogy at that time, that people were like, finally, a Star Wars film that I can get behind, because then people used 7, 8, 9 as a means to further bash the prequel films and go, finally, these are the things that I've been looking for all these years. It's the sequel we've been awaiting for all these years. I didn't want those first 3 films. Now it's time to get into the real meat of the story and see what Han, Luke, and Leia are up to. So basically, up until The Force Awakens comes out, there was a bit of like fear in my mind of like how fans would treat this and use it to undermine other things. There was a worry that I had for a variety of different reasons. I worried that, they had a chance to maybe not do a crawl with this. Would even John Williams come back for this? Would they do something completely different? I didn't know. Like, these were the things that, like, in a post-George era, I had to be like, okay, well, once I'm seated in this theater and it starts rolling, then we'll see how much it connects, or if not, or if they even acknowledge the prequel films at all. Do they just forget that it exists? Do they wipe it out? Is this like a Jurassic Park kind of thing where we don't even talk about 2 and 3 and we just keep rolling along? So it was just a bunch of mixed trepidation of feelings, I think, from 2012 all the way up to sitting in the theater in 2015. Now, was I certainly excited and hopeful in deep down that this would be a great film and I would love it so much, which it certainly happened. Like, that was certainly there, but also in the other respect, there was that kid that was bullied tremendously for liking those movies back in the day, that was a little fearful and stressful about these things. I think Parks and Rec, the wonderful TV show, did a funny bit where Adam Scott was getting a massage, and this lady that was massaging was like, "You're very stressed. What are you stressed about?" And he was like, I think he says like the upcoming episode 7 of Star Wars. I'm paraphrasing to some degree, but I was like, yes, that kind of explains how I feel right now. If someone were to give me a back massage and they were like, "Oh man, there's a lot of knots back here. What's causing this?" I'd be like, Star Wars.
It's funny you say that as well, because I can remember when they started saying that there were going to be Disney Star Wars films. There was a massive, like, the scandal was going to be that the 20th Century Fox fanfare wasn't going to be on the front, because that is just as much a part of Star Wars
Very
as
iconic.
A Long Time Ago in a Galaxy Far, Far Away, or the first note of the theme. And
exactly.
It was weird how that soon it got forgotten, because the movies just,
we moved on quickly from that one.
Yeah, and they also churned that it was a movie a year, wasn't it, for the first 5 years, and it got to a point where in the old days we were 3 years between movies, so you built up that excitement. And but then I'm the kind that's like, just keep bringing me Star Wars, because it's been since 2019 the last Star Wars movie, so you're looking at 6 years. It's going to be 7 years before the Mando and Grogu movie comes out next year. So you go from like feast to famine, and it's just like, as a Star Wars fan, I think it's very, you complain about it when they chuck the movies at you, and you're going, oh, these aren't particularly good, and then you're moaning because it's been 6 years since we've had
That's
a
right.
Star Wars movie.
It's
So
it's definitely a catch-22.
definitely, without a
I
doubt.
want more, but not of that.
Exactly, but then it's also weird what you said about the fact that everybody derided George Lucas and went, right, good, we can have a proper Star Wars film now. After this trilogy, all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, but I think it goes in cycles, but the love for the prequel trilogy now has come back.
Certainly, yeah.
And look, I've always said that Attack of the Clones is my least favorite movie, but they're set at such a high bar. Well, Rise of Skywalker is my lowest now, and we'll get to that. But they've set such a high bar in great movies. Marvel are falling foul of this same thing, that they set such a high bar with great movies that your lowest movie in your list of what the 9 Star Wars movies are way better than 80% of every other movie. So and I think it always comes in cycles. I think when it gets to, but let's get to the prequel trilogy, the sequel trilogy, because there definitely was a shift when it came to The Last Jedi. Now, do you think that was because of story, or do you think that was, and I noticed on the episode I listened to today, you were talking about the clickbait, the YouTube channels that do nothing but that slag Star Wars off, and I'm the same as you. That's just for clicks, and I'm sorry, right. It really, really infuriates me, because you know that they are doubling down on being negative about Star Wars, because that gets more clicks than loving Star Wars.
Yeah.
Is that something which do you think that was in regards to The Last Jedi? Do you think it was because of the story, or do you think it was because it was now prime, those kind of YouTube channels?
I think a lot of it was the prying of YouTube channels. So basically, I think that and this is my opinion, of course, too. I think if you look holistically at specifically The Last Jedi and the story that's being presented and how it was constructed and then executed, I think it's a really well done film across the board. And I think the story makes sense. I think all the things that people find to be perhaps convoluted or complicated about the film that they struggle with, I think most probably would be the Luke Skywalker of it all and how his character is handled. I think based off of what is introduced in The Force Awakens, and then where Rian Johnson was forced to take up the mantle from in that film. He did an excellent job with the story presented to him, and then created a story based off of that, off of those notes, then creating another story based off of that. And I think personally, it's a really well done when you think through it logically like that. Now, if you don't agree with that, then that's totally fine. And that's a great conversation that we can have about that from a good faith and good place about it. But if you're like, oh, I don't like Rose Tico because it's a woman character, or if it's like, oh, Rey is a Mary Sue because she just picks up a lightsaber and then knows how to do it and didn't have any years of lightsaber training. I'm like, okay, well, a lot of people haven't had years of training and then picked up a lightsaber and did stuff. So, it's just out of bad faith when it comes to things like that. And then once people started having, it felt like some people just felt like, let's keep the ball rolling here and find everything to nitpick about this movie possible. I think it's just that was an era of film criticism too, that just expounded beyond The Last Jedi, and that was kind of just like the peak focal point of the film was certainly, or that era of criticism was certainly that way. A lot of bloggers were trying to get clicks for their media sites, or to just generate ad revenue for their various places, whether it be YouTube or if they have a clickbait website, of course. And that's what they were looking for, the hot thing, and a lot of people ran with it, and they found success in those algorithms, and then rolled with it. And it's just sad, because I think it's a really good film, and if there's something you don't agree with, then we can process through that and talk through it as a fandom. I think a lot of the prequel films were that way for a lot of people too. Like, oh, George is starting this story out with like 9-year-old Anakin Skywalker. I would have never made that choice, and it's a bold, stylistic execution choice at the end of all things. But when you think about it, okay, he has to start somewhere, and it's showcasing the arc there of Anakin starting off with this little boy that's a slave that we then see makes great choices in honor of the people that he cares about. And then is thrust into this whole grand new world of loneliness and what it is to be a Jedi, and then finds these various things throughout his life that gives him hope and meaning. But then he has this attachment to it, and that causes him to go down the dark path that he eventually goes down. And then The Last Jedi just kind of takes some big swings, and for me it worked, and I love that theatrical experience of seeing that film, and for others it didn't, and I respect those that are like, I didn't like this movie because I think that this character wouldn't have done this in this instance. And okay, let's great, let's have that conversation about it. Let's go have a bite to eat and chat about it and talk about it, versus let me run to my keyboard here and say this character sucks dot dot
Yeah,
dot.
yeah, I completely agree. And the thing is, like, the one thing that the prequels always got like lambasted for is George Lucas, to me, is a visionary storyteller.
Hmm.
You know, ahead of his time in regards to everything that you see up on the screen. And what you actually said, the way you described that then, is it's an amazing story. I don't think George Lucas is great at writing dialogue. That's the thing.
True.
Or he needed somebody a little bit like Tarantino sometimes. He needs somebody above him just to go, let's read this, and maybe Lawrence Kasdan, just to say, yeah,
Sure.
maybe let's just rewrite that. But when it comes to I've never understood with the sequel trilogy why they didn't have a Kevin Feige type that is overseeing it all, and they work out the whole story for the whole trilogy and then split that up and say, there you go. It was weird how they piecemealed it. So they said to JJ, do what you want, and then said to Ryan Johnson, do what you want. So he basically, everything that was set up, he threw away. Now, I think Ryan Johnson's a great filmmaker. The Knives Out movies are great. I love The Last Jedi, I do, but it was that thing. I think that's, for me, what makes The Rise of Skywalker so weak, is that, again, JJ has to, everything that he set up in The Force Awakens has to sort of resolve in The Rise of Skywalker, which makes it, for me, seem a bit of a storytelling mess in regards to how I feel about it. But it's interesting what you say in regards to if you take the bones of the story of the whole saga, it's biblical, it's the hero's journey, it's the usual thing. Then when you put the meat and flesh on the bones, sometimes it fails. Listen, when I said to you earlier on, Star Wars is in my DNA. I watched The Force Awakens 13 times at the cinema, I think it was, even once in French.
As you should. Even once in French.
Well,
nice.
we went for Christmas that year, the year that it came out, to Disneyland Paris.
Of course,
and of course, being a little Englander like
and they have that
am,
movie theater too in like that downtown Disney area that
yes,
they have
it's
there,
the
right?
IMAX. We saw it in IMAX,
Nice.
and I thought, well, it's bound to be subtitled, or at least it'll have something. Of course, myself and my son walk in there. Beautiful screen. It was amazing to watch. Luckily, I'd watched it twice before, and of course, everything's in French. And I'm thinking, being an English person, thinking, well, they're bound to do it in English as well. No, it was all in French, but it was amazing
That's
to watch.
crazy.
And I absolutely love The Force Awakens. It still makes me cry today.
Yeah.
And I can remember, I think I every person that I could find to go with me, I grabbed and said, do you want to come and see episode 7? Come on. And I would take them, I would pay for them. Just so I could have that moment at the start that I never thought I'd ever see on the big screen again. It's when it says, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and then you have that 5 or 6 seconds of silence, and then that first note of the theme.
Yeah.
I'd have tears just streaming down
Magical.
my face. It is absolutely magical. And it's the same every time. It doesn't matter whether it's got the fanfare or whatever. But it's I think when we get through, start doing our top 10s, we'll I'm sure we'll work out different things. I think I do come from a slightly different angle in the fact that the first 3 movies, as in 4, 5, and 6, mean so much to me. And I'm starting to really warm now towards the prequel trilogy. When I saw the Phantom Menace for the first time, I thought it was Citizen Kane. I thought it was the greatest movie I'd ever seen. And then the more I watched it, I went, that doesn't really make sense. Why are they doing it?
Oh, you should have only watched it that one time.
I should have only watched it that one time.
When you compared it to Citizen Kane, and that's it. It's top. You can't stop. You can't see it anymore.
But again, the action and the special effects in it are second to none. They were way ahead of their time. And Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. So, look, we love Star Wars. That's all that matters. In the end,
Amen.
that's all that matters. Before we do anything else, we need to do this.
Lisa's challenge.
What the fuck are you saying?
Thank you, Lisa. Right, so we need to work out how many duplicates we're going to have in our top 10.
Oh, okay.
So how many moments do you think we're going to have the same, Anthony? What do you
How
reckon?
many do I think that will the same? I'm going to say about 3, just
Okay.
based off of our conversation here.
Okay.
'Cause, there's some from a certain movie that I don't think you're as keen on that I have in my list. So therefore, I'm going to say about 3.
Okay, I'm actually going to go for 4. I think
Okay.
I think we're going to go for 4 moments. So what we'll do, we'll talk about your podcast once we've done our top 10. But please kick us off with your number 10.
My number 10 is actually it's arguably the first moment of so it's you were saying how this was a reason that you were going to the cinemas. You wanted to see that moment for the first time again. Was that bombastic for Episode 7, The Force Awakens? The Star Wars logo appears and the fanfare goes in the background. But for me, my first moment is seeing, all right, Episode 7, because that was another fear that I have. Would they even keep the episode titles? Would they do something different here? So I say, okay, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, and then I was like, okay, what's the first thing gonna be? I was so curious, and it says Luke Skywalker has vanished, and that just blew my mind. All the fear and stress that I had at that moment just went away, and then I was just able to sit down in my seat and relax. And I thought this is excellent because this showcases a wonderful story beat that we can go off from this point of, okay, well, why is Luke gone? Where did he go to? How did he get there? What are the circumstances for that? Did someone, did the New Republic fall apart? All these questions I had swirling now because of this one sentence now sent us off into the stratosphere for the rest of this movie, particularly, but also for the rest of the sequel trilogy, because everything falls as a result of Luke Skywalker vanishing. So just seeing that first line cleared up so much of the anxiety that I had going into this for years. And it was, boy, did I leave a wonderful sigh of relief after seeing all these things, just like, okay, familiar beats and sights. And then we're in the crawl. I see this familiar font again. Luke Skywalker's vanished. We're in it. We're out of a new Star Wars. Let's go, baby. So that's my number 10.
That's my number 4. So I've got that
perfect.
as in like the opening of The Force Awakens, because it's exactly that same feeling that like I didn't want them to change anything. I knew that the fanfare wasn't going to be there, so that kind of the very first time was like it misses that. But as soon as A Long Time Ago in a Galaxy Far, Far Away comes up, you're back, you're home, as Han says, and it's that whole moment of the crawl, and it takes you back. It took me back to being an 8-year-old, seeing it on the big screen for the first time. So I completely agree that should be in there. So that's your number 10, and that's my number 4. So we've got a duplicate
Already
straight
got one.
away. Look
at that.
Off the bat, straight away.
I might have lowballed 3 at that point now. Oh boy.
You might have done. Okay, my number 10 is from let me just let you know. I've got some from The Force Awakens and some from The Last Jedi. I haven't got anything from Rise of Skywalker. I really looked and thought to see if there was anything that stuck up, but unfortunately there wasn't. So my number 10, the one thing that I loved about The Force Awakens was the comedic bits. The bits that were just, they felt to me like they were very J.J. Abrams sort of type of comedy.
Sure.
I thought Harrison Ford, I mean, he is to me. There are certain people that when they pass, I am going to be absolutely devastated. Carrie Fisher was one of them. That Christmas that she passed away, I came in here, and actually, I think I recorded like a YouTube video, and I didn't know why. I said to my wife, I said, I don't know why I'm so upset. And she goes, because she's somebody that's been with you all your life.
Yeah.
So
anytime you needed her, she was right there.
Yeah, and when Harrison Ford, please not, soon, but when he goes, he'll be another one of those ones that, and the moment when they're on Starkiller Base and they're running through the snow, Han Solo, Chewie, and Finn, and Finn starts saying that he's going to use the Force, so they can use the Force, and Han turns and goes, "That's not how the Force works." Yeah. And then Chewie growls, and he turns around and goes, "Oh, you're cold." I love that kind of comedy. It was just so natural, and they're trying to save galaxies, and they're trying to save planets, and they're trying to save Rey and everything. And this twofer of a great comedy 1-2 punch was just perfect. And
agreed.
So I've got that there as that's my number 10, my first one from The Force Awakens. Okay, your number 9 then, please, Anthony.
My number 9 is going to be from a film called Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. And this is arguably a climactic moment of the film. And we're talking about wonderful theatrical experiences here. My number 9 is the Holdo maneuver. Yes, where Admiral Holdo then shoots off what's the remains of that ship and just goes into hyperspace and plummets through all those ships of the First
That's my
Order.
number 9.
Oh man. Well, perfect. We're number 9ing on both this. Oh man. Only one more to tie it. Oh man.
Yeah.
I should have picked
man.
like 7. Wow. And just seeing it visually, but also the absence of sound that happens in that sequence too. Like you could, at least in my first viewing of that film, you could hear a pin drop in the audience. I think everyone just like collectively held their breaths in that moment, and it brings chills to my body right now just even thinking about it. It was just an incredible moment. I don't think it could ever be really replicated in the same way again in the cinema like that. And that just showcases the power of the art on screen that you're seeing, and a real fixture of how awesome the team behind the scenes pulled that together. So pulling out all sound from that beat, just letting the gravity, because it lingers on it for about a good 10 seconds. So you really get the weight of the sacrifice that is made here, allowing the remnants of the resistance to escape down to Crate, and then that of course leads to the later battle there. But just wow, what an incredible moment! It blew my mind then. It still blows my mind now, and it's just a one of a kind theatrical moment for me.
Question, as I feel you might be able to pick this apart better than
Sure.
anybody else. So in The Rise of Skywalker, they mention the Holdo maneuver, don't they?
Yeah,
And they kind of say that
and you see it for a second too. Yeah,
but they say it's a one of a kind thing, as if like they can't use it. Why can't they use that?
what are you saying? Like when Dominic Monaghan character is like, we should just pull some Holdo maneuvers.
Yeah, and they say, "Oh, it's a one of a kind thing." That's always bugged me, that, because obviously it's named after her, isn't it? Isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I interpreted that as because of the gravity and how big that Final Order fleet was, that Sith fleet, with the resources they had at that time,
I suppose
it would have only done a little dent in that, and then the rest of the galaxy would have been left to suffer for almost eternity underneath the fascist empire of the Sith. So that's where it just kind of seemed to me like one of those where it was like, okay, this is a ridiculous answer made by this gentleman here. We're going to move on to other plausible solutions for how we can take down the Final Order here. And you do see it at the end of the movie. Someone did it, I think, above where Wicket is at. When he's looking up in the sky, I believe that there's a Star Destroyer that was split in half in the same way that it looks like someone executed a Holdo maneuver above that space.
I'm going to have to look at that again then. You're going to make me
due for
watch
another
Rise of
rewatch.
Skywalker.
There you go.
Well, that was something I never thought would come out this episode.
I've won already.
Yes, well done. Well done.
My work here is done, folks.
That's it. Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Okay, so we both had that as number 9, so it's over to you for your number 8.
Man, if I just keep knocking out all these on our list here, I mean, wow, we're just gonna keep rolling through it.
We will.
So my number 8 is what I like to call in my house a fist pump moment. So it's one of these things that when you see it in the film, doesn't matter when it's the first time or 15 times or 100 times later, you're still like, yeah, this is awesome. So for me, this is in Episode 7, The Force Awakens, and this is when the Resistance first comes to Takodana to help Han and Finn and seemingly what could have been Rey. They're sent out the message from Maz Kanata's castle that BB-8 is there with the map to Luke Skywalker and all that. And the First Order got word of that, so they arrived first. But then the Resistance comes out, and you just hear a couple beats and explosions in the sky. A couple things get shot up around Han and Finn and Chewie, and Finn goes, "What's that?" And then Han goes, "It's the Resistance." And then the John Williams March to the Resistance music swells up. You start to see the X-wings over the water, and they go into this climactic space battle, or not even a space battle, but just a battle in the sky above them. And the tide turns here. You just feel like you're part of this moment. Even when you're sitting in the audience, you just feel swelled up in this incredible moment here. The Resistance is coming here. The reformed rebellion, in a way, just gives them a nice 1-2 punch here. So we finally get to see a victory for the heroes that we're here to support, and just wonderful to see the resistance. And then Poe Dameron goes off on this wonderful
That great
display
sort of
of
one shot.
heroism.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Fantastic
And then
shot.
Finn goes, "Who's that? Who's that guy? He's a heck of a pilot." And so just funny that they had that moment earlier in the movie. So I love that moment just because every time I see it, fist bump. Love it.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I can remember when all of the trailers came out, myself and Neil, we did like trailer reactions to it, and we dissected it, like every scene. And that was one of those moments where in the trailer it had that sort of sweeping
those
shot.
X-wings coming up, yeah,
and then it also had that shot of Han Solo and Finn and Chewie, and Han's looking at something. So straight away you're trying to think, what is it that he's looking at? Oh my God, what could he be looking at? And I love those moments in trailers because Marvel again are masters at the misdirection. Misdirection in the Last Jedi trailer where she says, I need to find my place in this race, and then it cuts to the bit that's in Snoke's like throne room, and it has Kylo Ren holding his hand out. There were two separate scenes, but they cut them into the trailer, so it looks like they were talking to each other obviously at the time, but they're terrible for those kind of things, because straight away you're thinking, oh my God, what does that mean? What does that mean? And you just your brain just gets fried.
Yeah.
But that is a great. That's when it cuts to the X-wings just skimming the water. What a shot! What a shot that is! It's unbelievable, unbelievable. But I haven't got that one, so there you go. That's one that we haven't got. Okay. Talking about the one thing I loved about The Force Awakens, as much as people said it was like a soft reboot, had the same beats as A New Hope, they did things in it that we hadn't seen before. And I think the way that the way that blaster bolts seem to fizz and thud into things, and when a stormtrooper got shot, a First Order trooper got shot, bits of plastic would fly out, which you hadn't seen that kind of thing before. For me, the one that always stuck in my mind, that is my number 8, is when Kylo Ren stops Poe Dameron's blaster bolt in like mid shot, and so that like Kylo Ren, Poe Dameron can't move. He's like frozen, which he does again to Rey later on. And the fact that once he's done with his business, Kylo Ren walks away, and then the blaster bolt just gets released and fired wherever it was going to go.
That's a good comedic bit too.
It's such but it's such a cool moment. Like they grab Poe Dameron, 2 First Order stormtroopers grab him, and he walks past this bolt that is stuck in the sky, and it's sort of like just vibrating slightly. And Kylo Ren has the power that he can keep that there while he interrogates Poe Dameron. It's a great moment, and something that we'd never seen in Star Wars before. It was just that kind of the way that was filmed, the way that was shot. For me, I just love that.
I 100% agree, because also it's the introduction to your villain, right? If he's literally stopping people in their tracks, and he's stopping, blaster shots in the air too. Wow, that's something we didn't see Vader doing, really.
That's right.
And I love the sound design too of that moment too, like that crackling that happens as that blaster bolt's in the air, and it's just this eerie silence in a way where it's only that crackling that's going on, and then you just hear like the utter tones underneath of like this bass that that Kylo Ren is not a good person at this point. It's awesome. It's really well done.
Yeah, so good. The one thing that you have to say, like production design on the Star Wars movies, that they've always been great.
100%.
Just the design of the Millennium Falcon, and a million times I've said it on it. I've been to Galaxy's Edge I've been very lucky to go a few times. That's where I want to die, in front of the Millennium Falcon at Galaxy's Edge as the sun's going down. If I have
funeral
a chance,
pyre, everything. Yep.
If I have a chance, if I have a chance to choose, that would be it, because that is my in this world. Apart from being with my family, that's my happy place. There's nowhere better, and just the design of something like the Millennium Falcon for me is just beautiful. It's just always there. Okay, so that was your number 8. That was my number 8. We're on to you for your number 7 then, please, Anthony.
Number 7, yes. So prequel kid at heart. So this one takes us to episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, which is a callback to a wonderful conversation that happens in Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And this is Palpatine, whatever remnants of Palpatine you want to call this here, this person, this thing that is holding on to life. And when Kylo Ren finds where the location of Palpatine is, on Exegol at the beginning of the film, he's like, "What are you? How are you? Basically, how are you alive? How is this possible?" And then he says the climactic line of, "The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural." Boy, when I first heard that opening night for Episode 9, I got out of my seat and started cheering. I was the only person in the cinema doing that. But man, did I feel vindicated as a fan of the prequels for all these years. I said, man, no one can deny that you have to watch these films now. It's in everything. It's the thing. It's the Phantom Menace. He's from Episode 1 all the way through this now, and this is the through line of it all. And I think that line setting up here will play off at a later point too for a conversation bit that I'll say at a different point, but this establishes the dark side. This is exactly what they do. They cling on to life, even if it means I'm this dark, deformed thing that's hovering above with all these things pumping into me. God knows what type of juices that are keeping him alive. It's even a wild miracle that his spirit was able to even fly out from the body or whatever it was, and all the cloning and all that stuff that they've kind of established that was kind of being worked on with Project Necromancer up to this point. So I think that this is a terrifyingly wonderful scene. It showcases Exegol and all of its terrifying glory and reestablishes Palpatine as the big bad of this overall saga.
And the one thing, Ian McDiarmid, just you can see that he loves playing that character, don't you? He gives it everything.
I love that he plays it too.
Yeah, and the fact they've been very lucky, haven't they, in the fact that they've had pretty much the same people that has been able to play. Whether you've got John Williams has been able to do all 9 episodes of music, that Ian McDiarmid, right from being the Emperor. I mean, he wasn't originally in like Empire Strikes Back, but Return of the Jedi he was. To be able to play all the way through.
Well, he is now.
I mean, he is now. That's right. Absolutely. It's they've been very lucky in that regard. I suppose when you look at it, they've been unlucky because it would have been lovely if Carrie Fisher could have finished Episode 9, which was a shame. But that's a great one. That is a great. I mean, that was a great way to start Episode 9 without a shadow of a doubt.
Exactly.
And to be fair, that could have easily been in my top 10. That one. I think if I was going to put one in there.
Another reason to rewatch it.
But there you go. I mean, look, I don't need any excuse to stick a Star Wars film on. Do you know what I mean?
That's right.
I'm quite happy to just have them on loop, all 9 episodes, as well as Rogue One or the Solo, A Star Wars Story, all of those, and The Mandalorian, obviously, which is my favourite of the recent things. But okay, Palpatine, that's a great one. My number 7. Some may say should be a bit higher, but I'm going for the whole moment when Kylo Ren kills Snoke in The Last Jedi.
Okay. It's not on my list.
It's not on your list?
It's not on my list, no.
Wow, okay. It's mainly for that whole... I watched it not long ago, and I'm looking at the moment, and I thought, what if Kylo Ren had just done what Snoke said and just killed Rey at that moment? Because it was teetering on that brink of good, bad, dark, light. What if he just did that? But the fact it was so cleverly done with the fact that Snoke... I mean, that's the trouble with Rise of Skywalker, is the fact that who was Snoke then in the end? Because
a Palpatine clone.
Yeah, but again, then it's the whole thing of like the end of Return of the Jedi. Does that mean anything? Because that was just a clone. So it kind of that's where I don't like thinking too hard about it, because it devalues the stuff that I, have grown to believe in. Which
sure,
in the end, it's not my story, if you know what I mean. You have to let some of it just wash over you like water, and just think, okay, that's what that is. That's what that is. But the way that's whole set up, where you just see the slight movement of Kylo Ren's hand while he's turning Rey's lightsaber.
He's narrating it too at the same time.
And and he's telling you exactly what Kylo Ren is going to do. And it's that. I mean, I remember at the cinema the first time I watched that, the shock of that moment, because all of a sudden when the lightsaber ignites and Snoke sort of does that little funny movement, and all of a sudden he sort of slides off the top half of his body
falls in half. His arm is still there, cutting off an arm.
was so good. It was so good and so unexpected. That first time, nobody thought that's what was going to happen. So I was surprised that's not in your top 10. I must admit, I thought that might have been there.
I gotta say, it's tough to do a top 10 list, to be honest, because of when there's 3 films like this, with each, in my opinion, wonderful thematic and action moments that could easily do a top 50.
Absolutely.
Of wonderful moments too, and still even then I would have stuff that unfortunately would have to miss the cut.
I completely agree. Right, then give us your number 6 then, Anthony.
My number 6 is a moment that I like to call the peace and purpose of Luke Skywalker. It is called that because that's what the song is, that on the soundtrack from John Williams that plays in the background when this happens. But this is the reveal that Luke Skywalker is not actually on Crate, and this is him providing the last moments of his life, right? This is him where Kylo Ren realizes that this is a Force projection that is being presented in front of him here, that he's having this final duel with, that he thinks he can have the one up on, that he wants to, imbue all of this hate and misery that he's had for last couple of years of his life. And he sees Luke Skywalker as arguably the bane of his existence. First it was his dad, now it's Luke Skywalker. These are the people that cause all the problems in his life. And in reality, he's the problem of his life, right? There are many chances that he could turn, and we'll talk about the turn later on here. I'm going to spoil that a bit. But I think this is a wonderful moment. This is exactly Luke Skywalker being the Jedi, right? I think this is a problem that a lot of the rooting of the issues that people have with The Last Jedi is involved with the Luke Skywalker character. And I think this is because there were 40 years at that point of people creating this aura of Luke Skywalker in their mind. What is a Jedi? And maybe even missing the point a little bit there. Like, Jedi are not these people that should be going around collecting PowerPoints, if you will. I think maybe the 1990s Power of the Force figures where Luke is like almost a demigod figure in a way, with all buff and all that is that image that people had in their mind. And Luke should just be throwing Star Destroyers out of the sky with his Force abilities. And really, that's not what a Jedi does. They're pacifist religious beings. They are these monks that are trying to become more attuned with the goodness in the world, and they help out people occasionally when they're asked to do so, or if they see something dangerous in front of them, and they help their friends out. But that's really the extent of what they do. They let the world kind of be, and they help out people here and there when things are needed to them. In this case, this is Luke showcasing the pacifism. Ultimately, at the end of the day, he's actually not even there. He's just a decoy. He's a thing that is just in the way, so that allows them, the surviving members of the Resistance, to find an escape route so that they can get out and fight on another day. I think this is beautiful. This picks up the throwing down of the lightsaber that is at the end of Return of the Jedi. That is the ultimate choice of pacifism. The love that is chosen there for his father instead of striking him down in anger and all that. And I think that's just a beautifully executed moment. And then when it cuts back to Luke, and he's exerted all this energy in order to do that, to project himself for all that amount of time, arguably who knows how many light years away from from where he was at that point. And the fact that the suns then, or the clouds then dissipate to showcase that there are 2 twin suns there. The wonderful Last Jedi comic, not the novelization, if you will, of the comic of The Last Jedi, in that last issue there where it showcased this moment, says it ends as it began, with twin suns, and that peace and purpose of that moment. And I think that's just so beautifully poetic in how it is done. And I couldn't think of a better send-off for Luke Skywalker than to be a true pacifist hero at the end of all things.
And I love the way that Rian Johnson just gives you that little bit of a curveball, because I think the scene before that scene is Luke on Acto, and he looks down and sees his X-wing there. So you think that he's right. He's like, oh, I've risen it up and I'm flying off, and this is me here. Yeah. I got a haircut and everything. I shaved my beard on the way over here. I've dyed and everything, and I'm ready to fight. Yeah. But it's that's a great one. That one didn't quite make my top 10. One slightly before that has, but and again that's a bit of a reveal there, but that is a great one, yeah. And the peace and purpose of Luke, that's just a great, when you put it that way, it's a great way of putting it, yeah, without a doubt.
It's very poetic, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, my number 6, I'm going for another comedic moment. I think one of the stars of The Force Awakens was BB-8.
Sure.
And the moment when he lights up his thumb, the light comes up. Every time I saw that at the cinema, it got a massive laugh. And it was just one of those moments that of absolute, it was just like, it felt to me like it was pure Star Wars humor.
Yeah.
You know, it was in universe. It was perfect. R2 used to do the same kinds of things, you know, giving an Ewok a bit of a lightning bolt up the ass and stuff like that. But for me, it was what made BB-8 sort of unique in that sort of as a droid.
Yeah.
It was able. I mean, I know the sounds. I think it was. I can't remember who it was that did the sounds. It was a couple of comedians, wasn't it? That did like the voice of BB-8, and my mind has gone completely. Bill Hader, and there was somebody else as well, which I can't remember. But those kind of things when stuff was, it was that same scene, wasn't it, where Rey is doing all the stuff to the Falcon, and Finn's getting all the stuff, and BB-8 keeps looking backwards and forwards at the two of them when they're trying to find out where the rebel base is.
Tell them where the base is. Yeah, you know where it is.
Yeah, droid, please, and then he does it, and then thank you, and lifts the old light up. Fantastic. Can't beat that kind of comedy. Okay, before we carry on, we're going to do this.
Pop quiz, hot shot.
Now, I'm expecting 10 out of 10 for this, Anthony.
Oh boy, I'm hoping so too.
What I've done is I've got 3 questions on each of the movies, each of the sequel trilogy, and then a final question where the answer has already been given to you sometime during this podcast, which I completely forgot about. So, okay, question number 1. So the first 3 are from The Force Awakens. Okay, in The Force Awakens, what is Finn's real name?
FN 2187.
Well done. 1. He's on the board. Number 2. According to Han Solo, who stole the Millennium Falcon from him?
Oh man, is it Duquesne? He's one of them on the list. There's a whole lineage there. I was like, which one of the lineages? There is,
really but well done. 2 for 2. Number 3. What words do we hear Obi-Wan whisper at the end of the visions Rey sees after touching Luke's lightsaber?
So it will be Ewan McGregor saying, "These are your first steps," juxtaposed with the beginning where it is Alec Guinness saying Rey when they took out him saying "afraid" and then cut it just to saying Rey.
That's right. You don't get any extra points for all of that information. You just get the 1. Okay, now we're going to The Last Jedi. So in The Last Jedi, what was Rose Tico's sister's name?
Paige Tico.
Well done. 4 out of 4. Number 5. What were the animals forced to race on Canto Bight called?
Oh, Fathiers.
Well done. This man is on fire. And number 6. What is the name of the First Order droid that resembles BB-8?
Oh, isn't it BB-9E?
It absolutely is. Well done. 6 for 6.
I had to think about the Funko Pops of that era.
I know. I've got mine up there somewhere. Number 6. These are all from Rise of Skywalker now. Number 7. Which of Poe's old friends is the leader of a Spice Runner group on Kijimi?
That'll be Zori Bliss.
7 out of 7. Number 8. Whose decapitated head was presented to the Supreme Council by Supreme Leader Kylo Ren?
Bolio.
Is correct.
Also voiced by Mark Hamill.
Number 9. Who voiced the character of Bolio?
Mark Hamill. Win the war.
That's right. Right, so to get 10, how much did the sequel trilogy make at the worldwide box office?
Oh, it was over 4 billion, they said. I can't remember the exact number, but I thought as soon as that was said, I said, oh, okay, well, that they're in the profit now. Indeed. So can you give us it's 4 point what billion to see if you can get 10 out of 10? 4.126.
It was 4.4 billion.
Okay.
It was but 9 out of 10. Well done, sir.
I'll take it.
Well done. That is impressive. Most impressive, as Darth Vader would say. Well done. Okay, back to the top 10. So your number 5 then, please.
My number 5 goes back to a wonderful film called Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. And it is a wonderful quote that our own Rose Tico says to Finn after she just saved him from stupidly ending his own life as he was heading headlong into that whatever this destroying doorbuster thing that the First Order had that would have easily, I think, just blown him up before he even got to it.
Yeah.
Whatever he was thinking in his head was I'm going to sacrifice myself for meaning here, but I don't think it would have actually ultimately gotten to that end point there where he was thinking he was going to get. Then once he survives and realizes that he survived, and then Rose is like, he's like, what are you doing? And then he's like, I saved you. And he's like, well, he can't even recognize that that's possible, right? He just come from such a world of isolation and thievery and one-upness that the First Order is absolutely ingrained within that system. There's no individualism whatsoever. There's no names. There's just you, and you fight, and then you die, and that's it. You were taken from a family that loved you. You have no friends. You have no family here. You live this cold lifestyle within the First Order, and now that he's a part of the rebellion and felt like he had something worthwhile to sacrifice for, he was going to take that chance here. But Rose then reminds him, he's like, dummy, that's not how we're going to win. Not fighting what we hate, but saving what we love. And I think that is the beautiful thesis statement of not only this movie, but I think for perhaps the sequel trilogy as well, because I think that's just a really excellent thing that we can take away from this film, this series of films, and take it to our everyday lives. And as we're fighting tyranny and other hard, destructive forces that are out there in this real world, that's how we win at the end of the day, is we celebrate the victories with our friends and with our family members, and we choose to be good people at the end of all things. And when you do that, enough people do that, then we cancel out the hate that goes around us. So we all get the chance to choose to be a force for good, and I think in that moment Rose chose to do that, and it allows Finn to continue being a wonderful leader and celebratory member of the resistance. And I think that pays off so much in Rise of Skywalker, the fact that he's there and he helps lead this stormtrooper uprising of sorts, or former stormtrooper uprising, and they're able to just go out into on those Star Destroyer ships and do some great damage, and they help. I argue they don't necessarily win the day if Finn's not there to take out some of those ships and to get rid of those the shield devices that they have on a lot of them. That then the grand fleet of people that appear at the end of the movie are able to take out a lot of them with. So I think this is a really important moment, and this is a really meaningful quote that I think for just not for the film, but I think for everyone at home. Like, I could easily put that up on my wall, and don't even attribute it to Star Wars, but I think people would really take a lot of meaning from it no matter what.
Beautifully said. I completely agree with that. That's a great one. That is a great one. I've got something I want to say a little bit later on, but yeah, fantastic that is. Okay, my number 5. It's from The Last Jedi, around the same things. This is before Luke goes in front with his laser sword and destroys the First Order, and this is when he has his moment with Leia and gives Leia the dice and says, no one is really gone. And it was obviously more poignant because Carrie Fisher had passed away. And really, with Han Solo's dice, it's the closest we got to getting the big three together. On that's my one regret about the sequel trilogy, that the three of them never got to be on screen together, which is, for me, it was the thing that should have happened. It should have happened in the first movie. Obviously, it didn't, but gets me every time. Just gets me every time, that one. So I've got that.
And then they like joke with each other too. He's like, "Oh, you changed your hair."
Yeah, it's so good. It's so, and I mean, Mark Hamill's, I think, a very underrated actor. I think he's just. The thing is, obviously, he didn't have much to do in The Force Awakens, but what he did do in The Last Jedi was just fantastic.
Agreed.
And it kind of makes you wish that he had more to do in the whole. And we've all seen the interviews with him where he feels like he fundamentally disagreed with everything that Rian Johnson did
Let's
with the
just say that
character.
didn't help the clickbait people too back in the day.
Exactly, and also even regarding the Force Awakens, when they did the first script read through, he was reading the actions, thinking, "I'm going to come in a minute. I'm going to cut," and he was just like on the last page. Luke meets Rey,
And there he is standing.
Yeah, and you feel, oh my god, is that a bit of a waste? But yeah, so that's my number 5. So over to you for your number 4, then, Anthony.
Well, speaking of Mark Hamill thinking he was going to appear in The Force Awakens, I remember specifically him being like, all right, on the battle at Starkiller Base, and the lightsaber starts moving and all of that. And then he said, all right, this is it, baby. This is where Luke Skywalker appears and he saves the day. And then he says, no, it flies to Rey. What?
That's right.
So this is my moment here for number 4. This is Rey pulling the lightsaber from the snow, showcasing that she has the Force. She's able to, and then engages in this wonderful lightsaber battle of good versus evil on this planet in Starkiller Base, which we know is now is Ilum. And just this incredible display of good and bad happening here. Kylo Ren, he's been shot a few times, so I understand why he's not able to best her. He's literally bleeding out, which I know is a criticism for a lot of people for this movie. He should have been. She just picked up a lightsaber. How is it even possible? Like, dude's literally bleeding out. He's punching himself just so he feels something in the area.
Yeah.
But I think this is just a wonderful moment. It's again another great theatrical experience. Everyone being like, it went to her. And that, again, a fist pumping moment for sure. A
Absolutely.
film littered with them across the board here, and just confirming she has this lightsaber. It's the Skywalker family blade. It called to her, and just picks up on that story, and we'll keep continuing with that throughout this and what that means and how is it connected to her and all that stuff. But it's really just becomes the hero's blade at that point. It recognizes, I see you as a person that's going to fight for good here, and we'll win the day together, basically. And for a lightsaber that also killed younglings in episode 3, I'm glad it gets the choice to say, like, hey, you're going to do something good with your life. I'm glad that I get to choose you at this point.
Yeah.
So I think it's a wonderful moment. I still fist pump again every time I see it. And it really sets us off on we're on the hero's journey, but this is Rey choosing to be a part of it at this point. She's kind of in and out, back and forth, and all that stuff. But now she's knee deep in the activities of the Resistance at this point.
No, I'm not sure at that point whether they'd have known that Rey was a Palpatine. But when you look at her
depends who you talk to.
Yeah, but when you look at her fighting skill, she does that thrust movement with a lightsaber that Palpatine does, and I can remember watching it thinking, "Oh, that's a weird move for Rey," because everyone thought she was a Kenobi or a Skywalker, or
Sure.
So I didn't know whether, but like you say, when you see interviews of different people, they only put that in when it was Rise of Skywalker. They hadn't thought about doing that because they didn't know. Always made me think that, because it was just a real weird movement. So that's your number 4. My number 4 was the whole opening of The Force Awakens.
Right.
So we're back to you for your number 3.
My number 3 is a film. It's a moment in the film that always tugs at my heartstrings, and this is a wonderful sequence that pays off the exact similar scene, but from a different perspective, meaning, and vantage point. But this is Han and Ben Solo now reuniting in the Rise of Skywalker. This is a Force memory, if you will, coming back here. So this is how we get Han back in this film for just a short time, and then going through those same beats of, I don't know if I have this, I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it, and just healing himself of this. Once Rey has healed him again, because she just moments before stabbed him with his own lightsaber and healed him from that, using that Force heal that was then introduced in this movie. So he's now back, and he's had this new outlook on life because of this. He's felt the passing of his mom. He's just going through all these emotions in this moment and grief, and then his dad is there to help him through this moment in time again. He was there before in the events of The Force Awakens, when they're on that very long no guardrail bridge, and then he says, I don't know if I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. And he's like, we can do it together. And then he, of course, stabs him with the
Yeah.
lightsaber and then tosses him over that almost seemingly endless pit underneath them there. And in this sequence, this is him saying, I am rejecting the dark side. I am choosing to be a force for good here. I am throwing this lightsaber into the the ocean here, and him saying dad, and his his vocals just break down there. He's like, dad, and like, oh man, that hits me right in my feels here too. And then with Han just being truly Han about it, I know,
I know.
and
Yeah.
touching his face there, and having this wonderful moment where they're back in it together, because I think it pays off of the Luke Skywalker battle with him in episode 8, where he's like, and now I'll always haunt you like your father too. Just, he says something like that to that degree.
Yeah.
And I think this is like the haunt that has been, he's like, I know I should have done the right thing here. I am torn by this choice that I had to make here, but I chose it because I want to be further in the dark side. This is how I want to this is how I can show that I'm awesome, and I'm this legacy of evil, and I get to be, the grandson of Vader and all this stuff, and I have to be cool in my own different way here. So I have to kill my dad, and it'll make propel me to the dark side up these greater lengths. But no, it left me unbalanced, and now I have him, and if I kill my master now, then it'll solve my problems, and I'll just be the supreme leader of all this First Order. But in reality, he's just left broken again, and as evil does, there's always something beyond, right? I think the realization of Palpatine is the thing, is like, is there something beyond him next too? Like, come on now. I thought I've trumped my dad, I've trumped Luke, I've trumped Snoke. Who's the next villain that come along here? Like, who's going to challenge my power here? And that's the thing about power, especially when it comes to the dark side, is there's always someone stronger than you. Like, they always are fearful of losing their power and or someone challenging their power. So that's why they have to subjugate others to make sure that they don't get power. But this is a return to the light side for him, and he realizes, wow, in this moment that I am loved, I am cared for, my family is with me, even if they're not here, I always have them within me. And the music swells at the same time. This allows us to have a few moments, albeit brief, unfortunately, of Ben Solo in this movie, but I think there are really some poignant and important and impactful moments here. So I think this is really executed, well seen, and I'm really glad that it's a part of this film, and a great way to get Harrison Ford back into this film as well.
I completely agree. I mean, I was going to put it in my top 10, but I haven't. I was just going to put Adam Driver, because I think he is
all of him.
Yeah, because I think he's one of those actors that it doesn't matter what he does it as if he's doing Shakespeare. He just has the same, and he doesn't ham it up, but he is. I mean, I think he's a great actor anyway, but he just sells everything. The same as I think Ewan McGregor in the prequel trilogy. They're just like the best thing about the whole sequel trilogy. That's a great one. I mean, well, we'll get to it, but that is a. I'm going to say what I'm going to say, but anyway. So that is your number 3. My number 3. My number 3. The two moments that the 3 moments in the Force Awakens that really always got me. Sorry, the former. I keep every moment in the Force Awakens that always gets me in my heart. This was the one. This is the final moment when Rey meets Luke on the cliff edge in Act 2. Just the look on her face, the fact that she's, offering Luke the lightsaber, and Mark Hamill does it with nothing. It's that look on his face. You do not know what he's thinking. It's that look of, is it regret? It's just an amazing look, and the fact that then that's the end. You don't know what it is, which then makes the start of the Last Jedi all the more baffling when he then takes the lightsaber and then just chucks it over his shoulder, and you think, hang on a minute.
2 years of people thinking about what's he going to do next, what are his first words going to be, and then hey, here you go.
It was like all that me and my Star Wars friends talked about, like, oh my God, what's he going to say? Is he going to light it up? Is he going to, what is he going to do? He's going to take Rey and he's going to train her, and she's going to be the new Jedi, I mean, again...
No, his first words are, go away.
Exactly. But that was what Rian Johnson did, wasn't it? He took your expectations and he scrunched them up and threw them away and did the complete opposite. And nobody would have thought that, he's just going to chuck it over his shoulder. He doesn't care. Doesn't care anymore.
He vanished for a reason.
Yeah.
He chose to not be a part of this thing. So, like,
Yeah,
he's not
shutting
going to
himself
be
off the
willingly
Force.
choosing to come back.
Yeah, he didn't want to know anything about anything. But that moment in The Force Awakens, where again the music is swelling up, and just the turnaround, just that whole sort of build up when Rey comes to him and he turns around and you see old Luke, and he's never looked cooler, with the long hair and the straggly beard.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, so that's my
Grumpy Luke Skywalker is a look. I agree.
That is definitely a look. Okay, your number 2 then, please, Anthony.
So my number 2 also goes to a film, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, and this is a wonderful return of a fan favorite from the original trilogy. This, for me, is the final lesson for Luke Skywalker in a way. This is the last lesson taught to him by Master Yoda when Luke is going to basically burn down the first Jedi temple there that houses the sacred texts, and then Yoda's like, of course, page turn. And well, Yoda destroys it himself.
Yeah.
He gets some lightning, his buddy Lightning, to strike it down and light it on fire and burn it ablaze, knowing that Rey fully has taken those sacred texts out. They she has everything she needs.
Yeah.
But what she doesn't have is the lessons of Luke Skywalker, at least the last lessons of Luke Skywalker, which are, pass on what you have learned, pass on, folly and failures, all of your failures, right? And frankly, that's the thesis for Luke in this movie. Is he's had this horrible moment where he turned on Ben for even a fleeting second and felt this great shame and guilt and the tragedy of being Luke Skywalker, right? In a way, it's interesting because it's like a lot of the criticisms of The Last Jedi are because of people having 30 plus years, 40 years up, got to that point of build up of what Luke Skywalker is and where he should be at this point in his life and all that stuff. And it's like this guy that's on Octo right now is the guy that's feeling the weight of all those 40 years almost of people putting these pressures and beliefs and ideas on him. Like, he is the symbol for the galaxy, and he feels like he failed everybody. And that's out of that guilt and fear and shame is why he retreated to be a hermit, a grumpy hermit on this lone away planet here, and turned his back on the world and the galaxy as they arguably need him the most, as they need Luke Skywalker to come back. And this is when, basically Yoda is like, hey, we can't lose Rey. You got to get back in this fight here, but you also got to get past like your failures, right? You pass on what you learn. You didn't do that. Pass on your failures. And frankly, this is Yoda too, in my opinion, coming full circle on himself too, because we've been doing on my podcast a lot of Revenge of the Sith discussions. I talk often about how Yoda was literally talking to Anakin, and Anakin's like, "Hey, I'm fearful that I'm going to lose somebody that's really close to me here," and Yoda's like, "Well, don't worry about it. Just celebrate that they're gone. Don't mourn for them. Don't miss them at all. It's fine. It happens. It's a part of the dark side if you miss them." And he's saying things that are accurate and right, but it's the method in which that he's sharing that information. It's the worst therapy session ever, and it's exactly the opposite of what Anakin needs to hear at that time, or at least not in the words are the things that Anakin needs to hear, but it's the delivery of it and all that. And of course, in this shadowy room here, where the window blinds are barely like open, you can just barely see their eyes in this sequence here. And Yoda kind of seems bothered by having to have this conversation with him too. So, Yoda could have stopped all this almost, all these years earlier, if he had just talked to Anakin in a different way. So this is him telling Luke, hey, I've made mistakes too in some ways, but I've passed them on. I've reflected on them. I've learned from them. And that's what every teacher does is you know, and this is a fantastic line that concludes their conversation here. We are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters, which I think is the brilliant thing of like, the best part of being a teacher is that you get to see what the people underneath you become. You get to see where they grow, and you hope that they grow beyond you, right? If you're a good teacher, then you've taught them everything that you know, but then they take it to the next level and they learn something more and they keep going, and then they teach the next person, and then they go on and do, and so on and so forth. And I just think this is really an exequently execant. It is beautifully executed, and it's excellent in what it does. And I think this is a wonderful sign off for both Yoda and for Luke Skywalker in this movie too. Before he then does this climactic moment showdown with Kylo Ren, where he's then able to confront him in a meaningful way and give this last bit of be that legend Luke Skywalker again, that they then see the kids at the end of the movie being like, and Luke Skywalker in front of he's exactly what the galaxy needs for him. And I think that's what garners up a lot of support, albeit still small and little, but there's some more supporters for the Resistance at the end of Rise, or at the beginning of Rise of Skywalker, but then also once Lando and company come into the fray, I think they use the legend and memory of Luke Skywalker in order to garner a lot of the people that show up at that Battle of Exegol with it's just people, and I think that just really showcases the through line of all this.
Yeah, it's funny because when you juxtapose the Jedi and what you're saying about, you teach your Padawan or whoever it is you're teaching, and you want them to excel and go on, and then they can teach and then they excel. Juxtapose that with the Sith, where the Sith always brings somebody up, and you don't want them to be as powerful as you, but most of the time they are going to be powerful as you, and they will destroy you and take your mantle and go on. The dark and light of it all is fascinating. See, you're making me want to watch Rise of Skywalker again. I didn't think this. Like I said, I didn't think this was going to happen.
You didn't need a reason.
But there you go. Okay, my number 2, talking of dark and light, I'm going to go to the dark side of what your number 3 was from Rise of Skywalker, The Force Awakens, and Kylo killing his dad, killing Han Solo.
Gotcha.
On the bridge, where obviously the health and safety officer had a day off when they were filming that, with no handrails, no regards for safety at all.
That's very Empire of them.
Very Empire of them. But just the fact that you have the symbolism of the sunlight slowly disappearing, and there's just that glimmer of light that that Kylo Ren may make the right decision. And as the final sliver of light disappears, that's when he's like, basically his face turns to red, doesn't it? And he obviously kills Han. The first time I watched that, and Han, like you say, tumbles down this ever just endless like chasm. The next time that I watched A New Hope, and you saw this, cocky, young, good-looking Han Solo. And all I could think of was, oh man, you've got no idea what's in store for you in like 40 years' time.
Yeah.
Your son is going to kill you. And it really upset me to watch A New Hope just for the next few times, because you thought, my God, this guy who's just cocky and, he's just got no fear of anything. And it really affected me watching the original trilogy for a while. But it's beautifully done, beautifully paced. Beautifully acted by both Harrison Ford and Adam Driver, and even, Daisy Ridley is an amazing crier on screen. Sure. The amount of time she has to cry, and she's really, either they putting that stuff in her eyes, I don't know what it is, or she's really good at it, I don't know, but fair play to her for that. That was fantastic. And we had the no, you always have to have someone shouting no, don't you? So that was Daisy's job there. Okay. Shall we just reveal our number ones? Let's not bother going through them all, because I need to know what your number 1 is now, because I'm fascinated to see where it is and which movie it's from.
Let's do it. It's funny because I don't think we will reach the 3 that I predicted, because knowing where this comes from, I think we're going to fall short of that moniker. So for me, my number 1 moment is the redemption/sacrifice of Ben Solo at the end of Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. So this is the natural passing into the Force of Ben Solo at the end of this movie. And I love this sequence so much because it is a natural passing into the Force. This is the greatest sacrifice and the greatest act of love is to lay down your life for someone else. And this is exactly what Ben does in this moment. He realizes that Rey is the opportunity. She is the future. She is everything, going for her. In this moment, she doesn't deserve to go like this. And in this moment, he has peace, serenity, calmness. For arguably, it's the first time in many years. Probably since before he goes to Luke's temple. I wish we had more about Ben Solo and all the stories that they had at the Luke's Jedi temple and academy and all that stuff. But when a film starts with the dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. That's where you start off of, and you see Palpatine being, like I said before, this like curmudgeon-y thing, right? He's not even a human. He's barely
Mm.
anything. He's barely clinging on to life, but it's that clinging on to life that is the dark side. This unnatural way to prolong life versus celebrating when you pass on into the force and understanding that this is an okay, natural way. And this is a part of all things, right? You live, there's death, there's rebirth, there's, all this into the universe. Luke talks about this in episode 8, right? It's this balance of light and dark. And with the sadness comes the loss of people, but also they live on in others, and we celebrate their memory and messages in the works that we do, and they live on through other means and all that stuff. Or if they're a force user, right, they can be a force ghost and converse with us here and there or share wisdom as they need to be. But I just love that it is this juxtaposition of Palpatine's ultimate defeat in this, where it's like, okay, I think that the sequel trilogy, in the way that I look at it, is. It is the legacy of Anakin Skywalker. I look at it as that whole thing. So when you look at 1 through 9, it is the rise of Anakin Skywalker, the fall of Anakin Skywalker, and the legacy of Anakin Skywalker. So with these 3 films representing that, and in episode 7, you get Kylo Ren being like, "I will finish what you started," and I think for a lot of us that meant, okay, I'm going to rule the galaxy and take over as you tried to do as Vader.
Yeah.
But in reality, what that means is, I'm going to save those that I love from dying. And in order to do that, there is a natural way to do that. And I think it's beautifully the way it's done in the film. He's just calm. He is just passing. He's lightly touching her, gives up the rest of his force. He chooses to do so and injects that into, or however injects that into her, imbibes that into her body, and then allows Rey to go on and basically she's reborn a Skywalker, taking on his energy force. In my opinion, that's how I look at it, and then is able to continue being the story and wonderful heroine for the galaxy, to continue the Jedi and be this force for good in the galaxy, but also taking on the memory and a message of what Ben Solo and all that is for the future, which I think is so beautifully executed and just a wonderful testament to what I think this film represents.
Beautifully done. Beautifully done. I'm going to watch Rise of the Skywalker probably over the weekend now, because you are making me think of different things in regards to it. There are bits of it that I still can't get over in regards to where did all those ships come from.
Sure.
That kind of thing. But those are the things, like I said earlier on, they're the kind of things that, like water, you've just got to wash over your body, because they are the nitty-gritty sort of little storyline bits. But the actual through line, like you say, I've never thought of the sequel trilogy as the legacy of Skywalker, but you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely right. And if you look at it as a through line from episodes 1 to 9, you're absolutely right. That's exactly true. So well done. And you're absolutely right as well. We are not going to get to 3.
I know we started off so high.
Yeah, we did. We've got the first 2 straight off the bat. But my number 1 is Chewie, We're Home from The Force Awakens.
Oh, man, how can I forget? Oh.
Because it wasn't just Han Solo saying Chewie, We're Home. He was saying that for every single Star Wars fan that never.
He was looking at us.
Yeah, that we never thought we were going to get an episode 7, and he's home at the Millennium Falcon, but we're home because Star Wars is back, and Star Wars is what we love. So that always, even talking about it, I feel a little bit sort of emotional, just in that fact of you're seeing somebody that, again, like I said earlier on, I love Harrison Ford. I think he's just a wonderful, wonderful actor, and Chewie's there, and it's the Millennium Falcon, and it is literally just takes you back to being a kid again. And so we were home, so it had to be for me it was the number 1 moment. As soon as we said we were going to do it, I put it up on my board for number 1. So
yeah, it's crazy. I didn't even think about that one.
There you go.
But, it might have cracked that top 10 now. That
if you had done, that would have been the 3, and you'd have won. Look, you'd have won. But never mind. Never mind. We had a couple of honourable mentions. At GR Dick's author says Han and Kylo Ren on the bridge in episode 7, followed by Chewie losing his shit and setting off the explosives early. Episode 8, Luke brushing his shoulder, which was always a fun bit. And also episode 8, Yoda appearing to Luke and telling him to get over himself. Thank you very much for that one. At Outpost Galaxy says, I know a lot of people don't like the way Palpatine's return was handled, but at the moment when he uses his full power of Force lightning on the Resistance ships fighting above is amazing.
Good moment.
And the Jamie and Steven Show podcast said, I, Jamie, love when Rey and Kylo fight Snoke's Red Soldiers after Kylo kills him with Rey's lightsaber. I mean, that looks... the whole different shades
stunning.
of red. It looks amazing. It really does. Okay, so we've done it. And actually, it wasn't too bad. I don't think it was very great. It wasn't confrontational at all.
Not at all. Not at all. See, we had a great good faith conversation about this.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about your podcast. I must admit, like I said, I've listened over the last few days. I've listened to about 4 or 5 episodes, and it's lovely to hear people sort of talk about Star Wars with passion and fairness, which, like I say, it's not everywhere in the Star Wars universe. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much again for having me on here. And folks,
My
if you liked what you heard here today, so basically I am the host of a podcast called Force Ghost Conversations. You can find it on any place you really find podcasts these days, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. Just search for Force Ghost Conversations. It will be there in some capacity. But we are a cozy, what I like to call a cozy deep dive into all things Star Wars and arguably also Lucasfilm adjacent things. So we'll also talk about Indiana Jones and Willow and just anything, frankly, that I'm like, okay, there's a bit of the hero's journey here, or there's a lot of people that are involved in Star Wars within this, so I'll feel like there's good grounds to talk about that. So last couple of months, we talked about things like Rebel Moon and The Creator, some films that come over the past couple of years that I think were awesome, that I think imbibe some of the ideology of Star Wars within that. But most and primarily foremost, our bread and butter is talking about Star Wars. So of course, we are in the midst of celebrating 20 years of Revenge of the Sith, Episode 3. So we've been doing a big series on that. Star Wars Celebration is just around the corner, so we'll be doing a lot of discussions about that and the news that comes out from that. Andor Season 2 is also coming to Disney Plus just very soon here in a couple of weeks, so we'll have discussions about that. So, there's a lot of exciting things coming on in the Star Wars galaxy over the next couple of weeks. So if you like what you heard here today, then feel free to come and join the conversation over there with us.
Wonderful. I will put the link in the show notes. Whatever links you want to send me, Anthony, I'll pop them in the show notes so people can just touch on them. Before we say our goodbyes, the future of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like you say, the convention is coming up as we're recording this in a couple of weeks' time, I think, isn't it, in Japan?
Yep.
Have you ever been to one of the celebrations?
I have been to Celebration Anaheim in 2022, and then the one 2 years ago was in your neck of the woods, so over in the UK. Unfortunately, didn't go to that one thinking that the next one would be in the States.
That's right.
And then
it was Japan.
Turns out, no, it's on the other side of the globe in Japan. So hopefully for the next one, that I will definitely make it a point to be at that one. In the interim, though, I did go to D23 last year where they had the volume on display, and that was truly a wonderful experience to see that visually. And they talked a lot about the Acolyte and had Manny Jacinto there from that, so that was cool to meet him. Hera Marshall from Star Wars Rebels was there too, and they did a full animation thing, and just really fun to be part of that too. But yes, will certainly be following along with everything with the different time zones as best as I can for Japan celebration here, and then definitely will make it a point to be at the next one.
Yeah. So what are your hopes for the future of, let's just say, Star Wars movies? Because it still seems to be very sort of unknown. It's an unknown territory, isn't it?
My hope is just to get one.
Yes, that'd be a good start.
I think my hopes are about as low to the floor as possible when it comes to, and that's not out of bad faith at all, folks. It's just because I'm just excited for a Star Wars film, and I don't want to get too excited for the film that's potentially 3 or 4 films down the line when I know Mandalorian and Grogu is just coming around the corner next May in 2026, at least here in the States, and can't wait for that to come out. And I think that's going to be a large marketing push at this celebration. It's the first panel of the weekend, and that usually sets the tone for what the conversations are going to be dictated for the rest of the weekend. So really excited to see what comes of that. I think there might be a trailer that comes out. There certainly was footage shown at D23 last year, and then there was a Brazil D23 that also this past November had some footage. I think the same footage perhaps shown there. So the fact that they're done filming, they've been doing post-production work on this film for quite some time now. I think they have definitely had enough time to put together a new trailer for this, or at least to buff up some of the animation perhaps that they had been working on since then. So I think definitely with arguably a year out from when the movie comes out, that it's okay to release a trailer, at least a teaser this early. Force Awakens certainly did that as well in November of
right.
2014.
Mm.
So just any bit of like teaser footage, just some more understanding of where the story's going with that one. I'll definitely be excited to see all that. I'm not expecting a whole lot else in terms of other news. I think last year, 2 years ago now, for Celebration in London, they did a big announcement of like, here are some upcoming movies coming
That's
out, and
right.
here are the people behind the scenes that'll be
Yeah.
working on it. Here's Daisy Ridley coming back. Ray is coming back for another movie. And seemingly we haven't heard a whole lot since about those films. So I doubt that they'll be announcing any substantive things at this celebration other than what's already been announced. So, Celebration's a great time just to celebrate what we know is coming. So Mandalorian Grogu's around the corner. We got that. Excited for that. They obviously Andor's coming out, and I think the first 3 episodes come out like 2 days after Celebration ends. So excited for that.
That'll be
Ahsoka
good.
season 2 is currently filming right now, so we get some more details on that. And then Visions Volume 3 is the panel for the Sunday of Celebration, and that seemingly will get a release date probably this summer or early fall. And I've really been loving those things too. So great to see all that. And no, I can't wait to be in a theater watching Star Wars again, and hopefully they have the crawl, and hopefully there's the big bombastic fanfare and all that stuff. I don't know if John Williams will be involved, but who knows? Maybe.
Yeah, let's wait and see. Well, Anthony, thank you so much for just geeking out with me for an hour and a
It's been a
half.
pleasure.
It's always great to do that, and I know that I'm not the only one that has a deep love for Star Wars and everything Star Wars. So thank you very much. Please, everybody, click the links in the show notes and go and follow and listen to Anthony's podcast, because if you're a Star Wars fan like I am, it's nice to listen to nice positive stuff about Star Wars. For everybody else, remember you'll hear Neil give all of our information. All of the stuff is in the show notes, whether you want to come and join our Patreon, come and be a guest, just like Anthony is here as a guest on the podcast. And all of the information and Gubbins is all there, so just click on the links. Anthony, once again, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to chat to you. Thank you very much, everybody else, for watching and listening. Now let's go start the countdown. And may the Force be with you, obviously.